Oh my God, I have YouTube blocked on my phone. I can't do my clicker.
What? Why
I
is YouTube blocked on your phone, Abby?
I can go unblock YouTube on my phone.
Hey, everybody. Welcome in to this week's Fireside Chat. How are you, Abby?
Hello, I'm good. How are you, Hank?
I mean, good, other than having YouTube blocked on your phone,
Yeah,
which
let me block the platform we're actually using to connect with people.
d- does that have anything to do with having children?
It has everything to do with the fact that I wanted to make myself work today. And I'm having
Understood.
a case of the Monday blues. I think I'm just like, oh, I don't want
Understood.
to do anything today except maybe talk about writing, which I want to do every day. So
Yeah, I get it.
here
I
we
get it.
are.
So
Yeah.
today we're going to talk an interesting subject about outlining for people that don't consider themselves outliners, which I would put myself
It's us.
squarely in that camp, and I think you would too.
It's us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I got to thinking about it, and well, I have some thoughts about this as someone who um, is pantser adjacent, shall we say? I I I
I'll allow it.
don't completely um, allow my allow myself to be in the pantser camp because
Okay.
to me that just feels and I know that this is completely unwarranted, but um, when I think about true pantsers, I think about people that sit down to the keyboard and have no idea what's going to happen, and they just type into the dark, as what's his name says. I can't.
That famous guy.
Yeah, that guy. He says, talks about writing into the dark, um, and that just doesn't. I don't know. It makes me feel too out of control to
Mhm.
just I'm a bit more of a control freak than that.
But I've done that
Yeah.
on more than one occasion.
Yeah.
And whenever I start a book like that, like literally just open up a Word doc
Yeah.
and let it rip, I never, ever have finished it.
See, and that's kind of maybe part of my fear
Mhm.
is that if it feels that loosey goosey, then there's no real substance to it.
Mhm.
And I want to feel like that my writing is inspired. If you want to, just be put to,
Yeah, you want to have a creative freedom,
right.
right? But I think one of the things that kept me from wanting to outline in the first place, which I'm going to go ahead and stake this flag
Yeah.
and say outlining is a skill you can learn.
Yes. 100%.
So, the thing that kept me from wanting to learn it in the first place is it felt too rigid. It felt
Yes.
like being in 11th grade English class all
Yep.
over again. I love
Yep.
you, Linda Lemons, my 11th grade English teacher, but it feels like she's looking over my shoulder with her red pen. And if you don't do it just this way and fit this format and have the Roman numerals correct, like somehow it's wrong. And there's
Yeah.
something about that that does not feel like creative freedom.
Right. It
Yeah.
felt like I was trying to shoehorn this idea I had into what everyone told me it needed to be.
Right.
And for my Gen X brain, the
Mhm.
anti-authoritarian
Don't like it.
nature of it, I just no, that's not how I want to do it. I want to create my thing my way,
Yeah.
and it never felt right.
Yeah.
But I did learn that having some organizational skills was helpful. So, how do you embrace the helpful side of organization without losing who you are as a writer?
I have a
That
mindset shift for you that I think goes along with that.
lay it on me.
All right. So the mindset shift is don't tell yourself you're outlining, you're just planning.
Mm,
You're thinking
Yeah.
about some of the questions, you're thinking about some of the things that need to happen in your story, and you're figuring out a plan for where you want to go and what structure or what format that takes or the
Right.
extent of which you plan is all in your hands to do what works with your brain and your process. Now,
Right.
that's trial and error, which is another thing that sort of sometimes is a stumbling block because there are lots and lots of different strategies out there. I mean, people have written books about them, and I always have like multiple ones sitting here, like where I'm going to knock over a whole bunch of books. I mean, look at this. These are
Oh, yeah.
all sitting here on my desk, right? Because I reference them, but I don't use any one of them as is, which means I kind of had to try them all out.
Right. Which,
Figure it out.
yeah. Yeah. And, this is such a personal topic for me because you read books like Stephen King's On Writing, where he's very much pro pantser. I think he's more pro pantser in that book than he actually is, or he's writing it from the vantage point of having successfully written over 80 books. I don't know what the number is, but it's a crazy amount.
Mm-hmm.
And when you've done that much, you inherently do things that you don't want to write down as part of your process. They just are.
Usually,
But yeah, I guarantee he doesn't sit down at the keyboard and not have any idea what he's typing and just goes with it. Because he even tells the story of he and his wife were driving Florida, maybe, where he has a winter home, and he sees a car go off a ravine or something. And then he starts with the what if game in his mind. Well, what if this happened? That's planning. That's thinking through that and conceptualizing a story, or at least parts of it, or at least an inciting incident, and then something to run away with. Yeah. So
can I piggyback off of that?
yeah.
So part of what you just said was he can do all this stuff instinctually.
Yep.
I think one of the things that is really hard is if you are, I don't want to say a green writer, because there are a lot of people who've been writing for a really long time who maybe are struggling to get established in what the practice is of writing a book, because there's craft and there's project management. And on the craft side of things, outlining for me has gotten easier. Planning has gotten easier. Once I wrote a couple of novels and started to be able to feel what it means to create a character arc, feel what it means to have cause and effect in your plot, feel what it's like to weave those two things together. When you're still young and learning these skills as a writer, it's very overwhelming to look at someone else's outlining plan and feel like you can live up to it, because you might not have all the tools yet to be able to create these things. So you almost have to try and fail and try and fail and try and fail.
Right.
People don't like to fail.
Right.
That whole thing in business, fail faster so that you know what to fix.
Right.
It's almost like you kind of have to fail faster, people, so that you can figure it out. Because once you get into that rhythm, like Stephen King, who's written a bazillion freaking books, right? He probably doesn't have to write much down now anymore. He can carry more of it.
Right.
I don't. I have to write more down.
Mm-hmm.
It's what that looks like, though, also looks different to everyone.
Right.
And you and I have kind of a similar way of laying things out, and we could maybe talk about that.
Yeah.
Because I think some people might like to hear our odd spin on it.
to me, what you were just saying about learning all these other people's processes, it feels a bit like the old saying about having to learn the rules before you can break them, because you need to know where the boundaries are, and what you can effectively change or not. It feels a bit like that. Like understanding the way people do it gives you the freedom to understand where you fall into that
Mhm.
spectrum. So, but while Abby and I talk in the chat, who's a pantser and who's a hardcore planner? But type your answer in there. Let's poll the uh
Or if you're on the spectrum from like 1 to 10, if 1 is pantser and 10 is hardcore plotter, so hardcore pantser, hardcore plotter, what number do you
right,
fall in between there?
right.
Because I think I started off as like a legit 1 or 2. And then I tried to be a 10 and it did not work for me.
Yeah.
And then I dialed it back to like a 4, 4.5.
Yeah.
And now I'd say I'm more like a 7.
Yeah, I was going to say that I feel like I'm maybe a 6. And I've said this plenty of times before. I won't start a book until I know where it starts and where it ends. I know the ultimate arc.
Yep.
This is where my character's starting. This is where he's going to end. Now, how those two link up is, an adventure sometimes.
Yeah.
And I usually know, 3 or 4 kind of tent poles in the middle, and that gives me enough of a structure so I know where I'm going. And if I ever sit there and scratch my head about, well, what's coming up next, I know I have an ultimate goal, and I know I have a shorter goal that I'm shooting for. And a lot of times that's all I need to get unstuck is just the understanding of where I'm going. So Sorintha said, Abby, what's the scale again? Did you say 1 was
All right.
panther?
So Bernadette, 1 is total pantser, 10 hardcore plotter. And so where do you live in between those two? Is there a way? Wasn't there a way we could do a poll in StreamYard?
There is. I'm
I'm not good at this.
where'd it go? Where'd it go?
Yeah.
They hit. No, not private chat. They changed the side again.
I know they did, and I can't see where it is. Yeah. Oh, here it is. I found it, you guys. I found it.
What's it under?
It's
not
under widgets. So
widget.
question.
Widgets. There
Are
we go.
you a pantser, plantser? Because I think this is going to make us plantser. I think I spelled that right. I am just a writer.
Yeah,
Or a plotter.
That's what editors are for.
Yeah. Pantser. And oh my gosh, you guys, sometimes I'm like, I have to be such a delight to work with. I am not. Sometimes I'm like, some of the things that comes out of my mouth, I'm like, oh, did I really just say that to someone?
Did I say that out loud again?
Yeah, I did. Oh my gosh. All right, here we go. I'll create our poll. Let's see. We'll see if did it do it? Start and show. Okay.
There we go.
Woo! Look at that. Okay, now we can see like on the screen when we play the replay, we'll have what everybody is. Good.
Yeah. Good. So everyone record your responses in the chat, just for posterity's sake.
I guess I could have done the scale 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. But so Hank, I love that you and I have made the same confession in that on more than one occasion we've made a very beautiful, dedicated outline, which we have then proceeded to ignore.
Yes,
that's the choice. We should have put that down in the choices on the poll.
Well, here's how I've thought about it, because that bothered me at first, and then I got to thinking that I used the outlining process to settle the story in my brain, so that then when I started writing, I didn't have to resort. Like, okay, let me back up. I always keep a section in my Dabble project in my story notes where I keep details like hair color, eye color, things like that that I might need to refer back to
Yeah.
if those things are going to matter. Sometimes I would never tell you what color eyes a character has. Almost never, now that I think about it. But there are little details that you need to track sometimes. So I'll put those things in there. And I don't count that as part of my plan. That's just things for reference. Maybe some other people count that as part of their plan or outline. I don't think about those things. So I will keep reference of things that need to be referenced. But a lot of times I'll go through the outlining, for lack of a better word, process, and that just helps me to understand the story. And then when I start writing, I just throw that out because I already know where the story's going. I don't need to, I can go to my reference file if I need to know the little minute details. But as far as like, are these people going to rob the bank or not? I know if they're going to or not. I don't need to reference back to that. So for my process, some of the part of just kind of untangling the story is working on that outline, and it's not something that I'm ever going to reference again.
Yeah. Yeah. No. So, like, if we kind of want to talk about some of these strategies, and I think some of if we want to break some of these down, there are good pieces to each of these that I have walked away with myself.
Mhm.
Like, if we're looking at my big stack of books here.
Yeah.
And I mean, my all-time favorite, and I reference it all the time, is Blueprint for a Book.
Yeah.
And what I love about this one is, and Jenny always called it plotting for pantsers, was the fact that she just asks you, she starts off by just asking you a bunch of questions about your story and your world and your character. So it's sort of I don't know, like, you don't feel like you're jamming it or shoehorning your story into something.
Right.
When you're just answering questions so that you get it straight in your head, to your point. Yeah, what's your stack of books? Because you have a wildly different stack than me. Oh, I have that one.
Romancing the Beat, which I think we both have.
I feel like this is bingo. Like, do you have... Right.
And then I've got write your novel from the middle.
Can I just take a minute to say, if I had a secret craft writing crush, it would be James Scott Bell.
Yeah. And I think Jacob turned me on to this when, like, a long time ago. I think he was like really, I don't want to say obsessed with James Scott Bell, but he referenced him all the time. And I was like, let me get into that. And this was a great book for understanding story structure and understanding, like, getting to the point.
Yeah.
Because I struggled with that a little bit in the beginning of really wanting to.
The mirror moment he talks about. That's,
yeah. I got really into, like, wanting to build the world and setting the atmosphere and all of that. And then the downside of that is never getting to the point. And he really helped me, kind of jarred me out of, like, get to the point. And then I've got Writing the Cozy Mystery by Nancy Cohen. Excellent book. And some of these genre specific books, while they are genre specific and deal with certain tropes and things that are kind of on the nose, there are plenty of things that you could take from this book that would help you as a romance writer, that would help you as a traditional mystery writer, that would help you as a fantasy writer, because character development is character development.
Does that one go into plotting a mystery? It does.
It does.
Okay.
Yes.
So if you are a mystery writer in particular, you have a very different strategy, by the way, than most everybody else.
Right.
That would be helpful.
And any number of genres would benefit from a little mystery.
Mm-hmm.
And like I've said, there are so many fantasy and science fiction books that could benefit from learning how a romance writer writes. You could learn more about character interactions from romance authors. You know, that I'm not going to talk about what genres are bereft of meaningful relationships. And then plot and structure. by James Scott Bell again.
Uh-huh.
Um, and then K.M. Weiland's Outlining Your Novel is a great one. And then I don't have my Kindle in here, but I've got like 40 different, on my Kindle. But these are some that I was moving bookshelves around this weekend and they were sitting right here off camera. So that's why I scooted over there to grab those.
I have a couple more that are just out of my reach. So
Yeah,
I'm just going to leave them over there. I keep thinking
understood.
I need to stack them all because I reference them. But
Right.
you've got so Jenny's book is sort of similar to also, these two.
Yep. And Libby's book is over there out of reach, as well as the snowflake method.
Yeah, in that they kind of start you off easy.
Yeah.
They ask you a few questions, you make a decision or two, and then you let it snowball from there.
Yeah. Right.
So these, I would say, if you're like, okay, all I've ever done is pants, and I've never finished the Ding Dong book.
Right.
I feel
And that's
like
the ultimate goal, right? Is
Huh?
to have a ding dong book at the end.
That's what everybody wants, is to have the
Right.
Ding Dong book.
Right.
These are a great place to start because they're kind of an easy on-ramp
Yeah.
to the interstate of plotting, right? Because the other thing that you have are books like these two, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
So these are what I always called the bucket books,
Mhm.
the template, and you're
Yeah.
trying to fill in all the boxes.
Which I'm not a fan of.
I hated.
Yeah. Not. Yeah. Because that makes me feel like I'm writing a cookie cutter book, which it's not. Let's go ahead and just say, let's dispel that myth. It's just because you follow someone's process doesn't mean, and we talk about this all the time with romance, and our romance friends probably feel like we're picking on them, but it's just such a great example of a genre that wears their tropes on their sleeve and their story structure, yet they have so many fans because the writers who do it well do it differently every time. And just because you're using the same structure template, or the same Legos, doesn't mean that the thing you end up with is going to be the same as everybody else's. So yeah.
No, I'm always more creative when you put bounds on me. So you would
Yeah, we talk about that all the time.
I
Yeah.
would like this, but I'm going to say this, be prepared to be shocked, Hank. Okay. So I have, in the last 2 weeks, been secretly outlining a YA rom-com. Now, I have outlined 3 or 4 of them, right? But I've never written one.
Yeah.
Like, I've been practicing, and I think I'm going to write this one. But let me tell you what, I actually used this as intended.
No way.
Mm-hmm.
But do I know this book?
You do not. I have not told anyone this book.
Oh, super secret information.
This is a super secret project that I started working on, but I pulled this book out. I don't think I could have followed it until now. Like, I don't think I could have really used it as a good strategy until now. And I have outlined, the first time I outlined a YA rom-com, I outlined it using Jenny's blueprint for a book, which meant I did not have beats that I was trying to hit. I knew my beginning, I knew my end, I knew what my arc was going to be. And I did, this scene happens, and because of that, this scene happens, and because of that, this scene happens, and because of that, this scene happens. And I stair-stepped my way from beginning to end, right?
Right.
And I sent it off to a coach to edit this outline and make sure it held together. And she told me, well, you missed like 7 of the beats. And I was like, what are you talking about? The story holds together. It has narrative drive. It has an emotional arc, has all the things it's supposed to have a story. And she's like, but you missed a bunch of genre requirements, conventions, we'll call it. And she's like, you can write it, but if you sell it as a romance, people aren't going to be real thrilled with it. And I was like, oh. So I re-outlined it. I re-outlined 2 more in that series. I set those 3 aside. This is my 4th one. And I thought this time I'm going to do it. I'm going to use the template. I'm going to see what happens. So I'll report back.
I can't wait to I don't even know what to say to that. I'm
I don't either.
so
I feel like I'm
okay. So just a glimpse behind the curtain. Abby and I have both gone through a bit of a creative firestorm lately, and we're doing things, and we're kind of instigating each other. And I think the second half of 2026 specifically is probably going to be the time of most creative output that either one of us have ever had.
mhm.
Yeah.
Um
And we're going to talk more about that as the year goes on, but we'll give you some insight into why. But
so there's a reason why I'm doing this template the way that I'm doing it though.
yeah,
And it's because if I can figure out how to crack this piece that I'm trying to crack, I want to be able to share it so someone else can help me replicate it because it's part of my super secret project that I've already told Hank I want him to do the same thing with mystery. But I'm figuring out how to take the template. I need the template to make it work. And I think now you know what I'm talking about. So,
oh yeah, oh yeah. So for our plotter folks who have uh answered
the
the
2 of them
poll here,
amongst
yeah,
us.
are you do you like love the idea of like Roman numeral 1 and capital A, and then are you like a do you love like the structure of the traditional plot, or are you more like bullet point outliner? Just I just want to know. It doesn't matter, but um so Abby, we're halfway through. We've kind of laid the groundwork about how we think about story, but we're thinking about, if you're not an outliner, how can you benefit from some of the things that I'm bullet point and flowchart.
I
Ooh.
was like, wait a minute. Look at
I,
Bill's. Okay. Let's pause for a second
okay, yeah,
because I know I've done this.
yeah.
Um, so when I realized that I just could not stick to writing an outline, well, I could write something, but then I never looked back at it. I never referenced it. I did what Hank said, which is like, I wrote it, then the story was kind of in my head, and then I just let it rip from there.
Yeah.
I realized I really didn't stay on track when I did that, though.
Yeah.
And there was still a lot of editing involved. And I ended up deciding to do this thing that I just came up with on my own. And I have since heard other people say they do this, where I would give myself no more than 10 pages. And I would say, just write the story. And I would sit down in less than 10 pages. 7 pages was what it normally took me. It was weird. 7 was like my magic number. I would just tell myself the short story version of it. So I didn't really go into detail. I didn't do a lot of world building. It was basically just what happened. Sometimes there'd be a line of dialogue or two that would sort of like creep in. But what I found was one paragraph would equal one chapter when I started to write, because I would take it and I'd just make it bigger and then bigger and then bigger and then bigger until I had the whole chapter.
Which is kind of the snowflake method.
It's like the snowflake
Yeah.
method, but it's also, you call it onioning, where you just make another layer, then put another layer in, then put another layer in.
Yep. And if you do that, if you kind of bullet point like a paragraph, and you'd kind of tell the story to yourself in 50,000 foot view, and a paragraph, each paragraph tends to be kind of a thought, which equates to a chapter. And so that it kind of, your brain kind of sorts it that way automatically.
Yeah.
So what I do is I'll start. I know the beginning and the end. I know who this is, where they're starting, what they're, and then I start thinking about what is the thing that's stopping them in the beginning from getting this thing they want in the end. So that gets written down, and
Hmm.
then I start saying, okay, well, what is the midpoint look, or what's the big turning point? You know,
Hmm.
if I know what stands in their way, what's a setup for that thing that stands in their way? What's a turning point for that? Okay, I get that. And then I start adding, kind of twist and turns in the middle that keep them from that, or that give them something, a new tool for their toolbox. I love that metaphor for some reason. Um, the thing that you collect along the way that helps you to get where you're going. And then it just kind of expands. It kind of becomes an accordion along the way until I'm like you and I kind of have those bullet points along the way, and then we're like, okay, well, now I'm ready to start. I know where I'm going, and it looks very chaotic to a lot of people probably, and it always starts in my story notes section of my Dabble project.
Hmm.
Rarely migrates up to the plot grid until sometimes I'll get like a full plot grid, but it's almost always one column. It's this happens, this happens, this happens, this happens. Um, and then from there, I'll write the story and then I fill out the plot grid and then
Revision.
compare that with what I've done and use
Yeah.
that to judge if I've kept on track or not. So
Yeah.
that's my kind of
I
controlled
mean,
chaos.
so I'm telling you, using this romancing the beat, like when I've really sat down and I challenged myself to try it, to just be open to trying it, right? And
Mhm.
so, but I didn't start with the first beat and go to the second beat and go to the third beat and go to the fourth beat. I did what you were just saying too. I did the first beat, then I went to the last beat. Actually, it was more the Dark Night of the Soul sort
Yeah.
of that I went to, right? So I bounced around filling things in as they came to me and it made sense.
Hmm.
And I'm to the point where I've just about got the whole thing in.
Yeah.
But I don't know that I'm going to do more than one line in my plot grid either.
Yeah.
I might be a one line girl. I'm a one column gal. You might be a one column guy, right?
Yeah.
One
Yeah.
column.
I'm, and when I'm editing, when I'm going back and comparing what I've written to what my initial concept was, that's when I'll identify those subplots and okay, well, this branched out here and I need to track that, and then it fills out.
Mhm.
But I'm a very linear writer in that, I'm the people that say, oh, I can just grab a scene at random and write it, just gives my brain cramps. I don't understand how that happens, but
I think they're liars. How could
ooh,
you really do that? I'm like, or they're crazy, one of the two.
well,
Just kidding, but
if you're the kind of writer who writes a 10,000 word outline, maybe because
you know what?
the
Then you could.
structure the
Because you're
structure is so set in stone,
not.
maybe you can. But
Hmm.
and I used to have this argument with Josh Hayes all the time because he's one of those elaborate plotters, like 10,000 word outline kind of folks. And I'm like, how have you not just choked all the breath out of your story by the time you've done that? And he said, well, I pants the outline. I'm a pantser as I'm writing the outline. And I was like, okay, that's a bit of a crutch, but okay, I'll give you that.
But we'll let you have it.
Right.
Hey, this
Right.
is a good question here that
Okay.
Rachel got. Is it wrong to bounce between workbooks if you need certain? No, that's what we're
Absolutely
talking
not.
about.
Yeah,
You got to try them all out to find the pieces that you like.
that's why we have stacks of them because there's a piece of this that I like, and
Mhm.
there's a piece of this that I like, and there's a piece of this. And what most people I don't know anyone who takes a book and dog ears it all the way through and they work through the book as they outline, their novel. Most people read this book and then they'll say, well, okay, I really resonate with this piece. and then they'll read another one and say, well, I really resonate with that piece. And they kind of build their own plotting device. It, there are people that will follow one of the, like a textbook. I'm sure there are. I just don't know any of them.
So I'm laughing, not because of what you're saying.
Yeah.
So Beth said, do you think in chapters?
Mm.
And then she followed it up with, hey, Abby, remember my 30,000 word chapter? Because I couldn't feel the break. And it's true. She wrote the whole thing and she never once broke for chapters. I remember her saying, how do I break this into chapters?
Wow. I guess I kind of do think it. I was going to say no until you just said that, Beth, and that I kind of feel the natural chapter breaks, and I can't explain that. I don't. It's kind of like if you play music and you play by ear, then you know what key you're playing in, and we're going to start on a G chord, and you just feel when you go to the C or to go to the E minor. It just feels like it's supposed to change. And I can't explain that. I know that's such a weak thing to say, but
because mine never end where they end in my outline.
Right.
By the way, mine always end somewhere before or after. And I guess in screenwriting, when they talk about scenes and things, I think it's screenwriting because Jeff is the one who always says this. Your character needs to come in late and leave early.
Right.
And that's what you should do with your chapters. You should start late and stop early so that you're leaving people wanting to turn to the next page.
Right.
And there's an art to that. Just like breaking up your paragraphs. Do you write really long? Do you write really short? That can help with pacing. Like, do you put this in a new paragraph or do you keep in the same paragraph? And I think it's kind of that same art you have to just play with because there's no real right or wrong answers.
Yes. And to that point, I'm glad you said that. This really doesn't have anything to do with anything, but one kind of final editing pass that I do when I'm working on a novel is to look at the pages. Do you see on this page how you've got like a moderate sized paragraph and then this huge chunk right here? I almost never leave a page looking like that. That is, you're just asking the reader to just get lost in a sea of text. And
hey, look, a couple comments down what Beth said. Same thing that you just said. You got to feel the chapter breaks.
Yes, you do. Yes, you do. It's in your bones. And this is what I'll say a lot is that we all understand story structure. Yes, we can read reference books that help us to kind of dial in the craft here or there, but you've spent your entire life consuming stories, either reading books, watching movies, watching TV shows, watching stage plays. We understand story structure. You sat on the front porch with your grandparents and listened to them tell stories. We understand there's a beginning, middle, and end to all stories, and how the stories that have resonated with you and that have moved you emotionally or made you laugh or made you cry or whatever. You understand that, but you've got to learn to trust that you know that. And sometimes these craft books will help you to know what you already know. Does that make sense?
It kind of just reinforces if you don't have words for it, if you're just feeling it and then you read the words and you're like, oh yeah, I do that.
Yeah. So I've got a couple of bullet points that I pulled from next Monday's craft chat, shall we call it? And just I'm just going to bounce these out here, and you just tell me if this resonates with you, Abby. You guys in the chat, tell me if this resonates with you. Outlining is not all or nothing. It can be a sentence, a few bullets, index cards, or a mind map rather than a chapter by chapter blueprint?
Oh, yeah. The
Yep.
people that just do the post-it notes on their wall.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Yep. Um, the goal is not to control the story perfectly, but to reduce the panic of what happens next without killing discovery. That's
Yeah.
and that was always my thing is I didn't want to uh if I fully told the story, then I wouldn't feel the passion to tell the story because I'd already worked out all the kinks. So knowing where I'm going ultimately, it gives me the peace of mind to not be worrying about what comes next. But it also gives me the freedom to know that as long as I end up there eventually, we can zigzag and take all sorts of rabbit trails along the way.
I think you've just hit on what a lot of people's fears of outlining is. And like when you talk about Josh Hayes and his 10,000 word
Yeah.
outline, I would feel like I already wrote the book at that point, and I would probably feel
Yes.
no need to actually write it. Kind of like when I was in art school, I notoriously would not talk about whatever it was I was working on because if I talked too much about my work,
Right.
it felt finished in my head and I wouldn't bother it.
Same with me when I'm writing a book, I can talk vaguely about what I'm working on, and but I don't give a lot of details, and it's not because I'm worried that somebody's going to steal my story idea, because we could have the exact same idea and I'm going to write it completely differently than you would, Abby. You
Mhm,
know,
mhm.
and it that's just not we we tend to think too precious about our story ideas. They're um
Agreed.
yeah. Anyway, that's a we don't need to beat that dead horse. But the reason I don't like to talk about it is exactly what you said. If I elaborate on it to you and I solve all those mysteries that are still in my head by telling it to you, then that story exists and there's
Your
no reason.
motivation to chase it is gone.
Yes, yes, and that's half of the passion of writing to me is chasing that thing to see where it's going to go. I know ultimately where it's going to go, but
Mhm.
how I get there, that's the exciting part. And I don't want to waste that for, you know.
And I'm going to argue that
Yeah.
if you have that end point and you have something you're driving to, you can probably work out most of what you need to work out to get there,
Yeah.
you know? So, like, don't get your panties too much in a twist over it.
Right.
But yeah.
Yeah. Here's another one for you. Non-outliners often resist outlines because they fear losing momentum, voice, or surprise, which we just talked about. So the best outline is the one that serves the draft rather than dominating it. Yeah.
Serves the draft, serves the writer.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
But you want your outline to underpin your writing, to be the scaffolding that holds it up, not the thing itself.
Mhm.
Because if it becomes the thing itself, then it's a story already told.
I need just enough to make me excited to sit down to write it.
Exactly. Exactly. I need the details written down so I can reference them. I need some of the big problems. I at least need to know there is a solution and here's a possible way through it. And then I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
Ready to go. All right, here's another one. Start with the big destination, not the whole route. Know the ending, the midpoint, or the emotional payoff before you map every step.
Mhm.
Which is that's my entire process right there.
And that's what I just told you I did even
Yep.
filling in the buckets.
Yep.
Those were the pieces I looked at.
Yep. Yep. Exactly. Build a junk document or brain dump first, where every idea gets dumped before you sort it into something usable.
Mm.
This is a another thing that I really like to do in my story notes. Every possible idea, or you know, is there a stolen Lamborghini? I don't know. Let me write it down. It could come into play. I don't know. Could be. you know, just any possibility, put it in that file. And then when you commit it to writing, it it lives in a different part of your brain for some reason, and it's easily accessible. It's like filling up your toolbox with things that you could need. You may discover that you need a screwdriver today. Tomorrow you might need a sledgehammer, but you've got them all there at your disposal. So Beth said I need to write down so much so I don't forget it. Yeah, me too. But I've learned that when I write it down, I don't always have to refer back to it.
When you write
Something
it
about the act of
down,
writing it.
I think when you write it down, part of what it does too is it frees up your brain
Yeah.
to keep building. Whereas if you don't write it down, you're so worried about forgetting that
Yes.
one precious thing that your energy is going to let me not forget this instead of
Yes.
let me create more.
Right. Yep. Use scene cards or sticky notes so you can physically move ideas around until the sequence starts making sense. You can do that physically with sticky notes. I always keep a couple of pads of sticky notes on my desk and if you see my row of monitors here, they all have sticky notes tagged on the bottom of them for, sometimes it's a story idea, sometimes it's things I don't want to forget. But another great way to do that, you can use physical sticky notes, or you can create scene cards. And if you use the plot grid, that's a great place to do it, because then you can drag and drop those, move them around. Well, what happens if I move the inciting incident up 2 chapters? What does that do? What if I drag it out, and build some more tension before that? You can see what works and what doesn't. And I'm very big on visualizing my story, and creating those scene cards and is a great way to do that.
Are you reading your bullets or are you
I'm,
reading
I'm
the chat?
I was reading that Keo says I have the transparent sticky notes, so I can. I haven't played with those, but that sounds so cool.
That sounds amazing.
Yeah. Rachel has a question. With the AI world coming into play, what are your thoughts on someone using AI to talk, work out a scene when they don't have anyone to talk to, using AI as a tool, not to writing the story?
I know what Hank likes.
Yes, because I have this is something that I have been a big proponent of using AI chat for since the very beginning. And I've said before that having a writing partner that you can bounce ideas off of is a huge part of my creative process. And something happens when you're talking about a story where the story itself becomes bigger than you or your writing partner's contributions. That's the act of passing things back and forth grows it in ways that you could never anticipate. So yeah, I'm a big fan of doing that. Like I have just kind of a for instance, say I have an idea for a new cozy mystery about an older woman who runs a bake shop, and she keeps finding dead bodies in the alley behind her bake shop. And then that you use chat GPT or Claude or whatever, and it might say, oh, that's a great idea, have you considered this? And you're like, oh, that's no, but if we did that, then we could do this. And you pass those ideas back and forth, and you start tracking those ideas, and a story comes out of that. So I'm a big fan, big proponent of using AI.
Talking it out with anyone. I mean,
Yes.
if you like to use AI, use AI. If you don't like to use AI, hopefully you have a friend who will talk it out with you.
Right.
My best friend actually was an English lit major as an undergrad. She's an attorney by day, so that means she likes to argue.
And a
And
chaos
that's
agent by
the only
night.
thing. Whenever I want to talk about my story idea with her, it's no, my idea is better. Here's why. And so sometimes I'm like,
That's so funny. That's so funny.
Easier to tell ChatGTP no than oh.
Beth says, I use AI and will ask for 5 or more options to pull
Yeah.
ideas. Yes, that's a great way to just kind of
Do you know what I like about that is, they say when you brainstorm, usually the first 20 or 40 answers you come up with are crap.
yeah,
And then you start getting to the good ones, right?
right.
So what I like about sometimes with AI is it gives you those 20 terrible ones first.
Yeah, get them out of the way.
You
Yeah.
gets them out of the way, but it gets your brain turning, and then you're like, oh, I think I could do this, and
Right.
you're off to the races.
Yeah. Here's another one. Think in terms of a few anchors: opening image, inciting problem, turning point, climax, ending image. Which is exactly how I do it. I think of the big tent poles, and then I start filling in along that way. If you think in terms of that, then you will have the backbone of your story, and then still have the freedom to fill it in, which is where most people balk at outlining. They don't want to go through the work. They think it robs their creativity. But the other side of that is getting stuck because they don't know where they want to go next. So if you figure out those things ahead of time, it's kind of the best of both worlds. Leave intentional gaps in your outline so the story can still surprise you. Which is what we've been talking about. Just leave room for creativity, for exciting things to happen. What's going on in the chat?
Oh, I'm writing, and I just said, does anybody have their own recipe for outlining that they like this craft book plus this craft book kind of is the thing that you want? But we did have, this. If you're just putting your ideas in AI, it's different than it doesn't really have your story. My story is in Dabble.
Yeah.
If I brainstorm someplace.
Yeah, nobody's writing their novel in AI. It's just a place to brainstorm ideas. If you find yourself at a place where you're asking yourself a question, there are 5 different possibilities. It's helping you narrow those things down, and then you're writing that. So for my personal recipe is I take a piece of Write Your Novel from the Middle by James Scott Bell, a piece of Romancing the Beat, and a piece of the Snowflake Method. And I think it kind of a mixture of those 3 goes a long way toward with information from Save the Cat.
Yep.
So just kind of understanding. So these are kind of the pieces that build mine, but then I also add in the understanding that I've learned from Save the Cat, from the hero's journey, basic 3-act structure. All of those things kind of inform it, but with pieces from these. That would be my recipe.
And my recipe is this to start with.
Yeah.
But then I check my work with something like this.
Love it.
Before I write. So I let myself outline freely without filling a bucket. And then I just look back to make sure I've covered my bases. But now for this book, I'm doing it's more this and this.
Love it.
I've just replaced Save the Cat. I did look at, I don't know if Save the Cat does a romance novel, but Save the Cat does do a YA novel.
I think they do.
I don't know if it's any different. Yeah, if anybody knows this, let me know. I could Google it. I know, but if you know, let me know.
Yeah. I do like the idea of using something in the end to kind of reverse engineer the thing that you've written to kind of compare. I do like that. That's a great tip.
That helps me feel free in the beginning while I'm putting the story together. But then, because I had lunch the one day, I think I couldn't remember his name before, but it was Christopher Vogel, right? Who took the hero's journey and did the screenwriting version
Right.
that everybody uses. They read his book. I had lunch with him one day, and he said to me, they're all the same. They're all talking about the same beats. They're just
Yeah.
calling them different things. So
Yes.
whatever the thing is that makes sense to you, just go with that one. He's like, doesn't
Exactly.
matter if it's mine or that one or this one or what. He's like, it's all the same.
Yep.
And so,
And like I said earlier, we've all spent our whole life reading books, watching movies. We understand how story structure works, and y all of these different creators may have used different templates to get there, but they all wound up in the same place. We
mhm,
all understand that stories unfold in a certain way, and that's what appeals to us as humans, as storytelling creatures, is that these things resonate with us.
mhm.
However you get there is perfectly acceptable.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, Rob didn't save the cat. I love that. And then here's one last thought that we'll put out there and just see what you guys think. Re-outline after your draft. Like I said, I use the plot grid after I draft because many non-outliners work best by discovering the story first and organizing it later. You can sometimes it's a matter of reorganizing.
Mhm,
Sometimes it's a matter of just checking your work,
mhm.
just mapping it out to see if what you wrote lays against what you plan to do. And sometimes it's more of, okay, I see this now, this could really benefit by moving up here, or shifting things around,
And
or you can see that there really needs to be a subplot here. And
the more that I write, the more I realize that I need some sort of plan. It doesn't
yeah,
matter what it looks like. I just need some sort of plan
right,
so that I can check my work against pieces like this before I write my first draft. Because if I can work out some of my big structural problems before I write my first draft, I don't like to revise.
yeah,
I love to draft,
me too.
but I don't really like to revise. And if I can save myself one good hard revision pass, I'd like to do that. And
Yeah,
so I think that's when I realized that I started shifting some of my work to the beginning instead of shifting your work to the end. But there are plenty of people who are like, no, I love to revise because that's where the magic happens, or so everyone says.
yeah.
And if you're one of those people, you might not need quite as much here because the part that you love is actually over here. So,
And that's one thing that Josh told me, was that he said everyone is an outliner. It's, are you going to outline before you write the book or
right.
after you write the book? And so what I've tried to do with my process is eliminate as much of that after revision as possible by laying out the things that I know ahead of time. At least I know that the structure is sound. Will there be things that have to be tweaked? Of course. No matter what level outlining you do, there's going to be things that need to be tweaked. But if you can
Little things.
establish the big structure ahead of time, that's going to save you 80% of your revision.
Yeah, because I will go in all day long and cut things or add little bits here, add little bits there. What I don't want to have to do
Yep,
is some major overhaul because that's when I panic.
that's
I'm
right.
like, oh,
That's right. All right, guys, that was a super fast hour. So next Monday, I'm going to do a craft chat workshop about this very thing, and we're going to get into some very specific uh, tools and tips that you can use. And I do hope that you'll join us then. Uh, Abby, thanks for joining me as always.
always fun.
Thanks for hanging out with us, guys. See you later.